You know, we all take photos every day. But have you ever stopped to think about the very first one? I don't just mean what it looked like, but what it actually took to create it. Well, this is the wild story of a single image that was born from an 8-hour-long stare right at the sun.
Okay, so just to put things in perspective, look at this. On one side, you've got a modern camera snapping a picture in a 120 thousandths of a second. I mean, that's fast enough to freeze a bullet. And on the other side, the first photograph. 8 hours. The difference is just, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around, right? Yeah, 8 hours. Just let that sink in for a second. That's a full workday. That's how long you're supposed to sleep. It's the entire journey of the sun across the sky. All of that time poured into creating just one single image.
So, let's set the scene. The year is 1826. We're in a quiet courtyard in Burgundy, France. An inventor, a guy named Joseph Nicéphore Niépce, sets up this strange device in his second-story window, and he points it outside. The image he created would become legendary. View from the window at Gras.
Right, so let's talk about Niépce for a second. You gotta understand, he wasn't a photographer in the way we think of one, not at all. He was more like a patient alchemist, this retired inventor who was just completely consumed by one single crazy obsession.
And his goal wasn't what you'd think. He wasn't trying to capture a quick, fleeting moment. No, his mission was bigger. It was almost like this alchemical quest to, fix the light itself. He literally wanted to trap a sunbeam to make an image permanent so it would never, ever fade away.
So after years and years of failed experiments, he finally cracks it. He invents a process he calls heliography, which is just Greek for a sun drawing. And get this, instead of using the usual silver stuff that always faded, he coated a pewter plate with a kind of light-sensitive asphalt. Yeah, asphalt. It was a totally weird but brilliant solution. The only catch? It was incredibly, unbelievably slow. So how did it actually work? Well, it was kind of like a 4-step recipe. First, you coat the plate with that special bitumen. Then, step 2, you stick it in your camera and just let it bake in the sun for 8 hours or more. This hardens the bitumen where the light hits. Step 3, you wash the whole thing with lavender oil, and this clears away all the soft, unexposed gunk from the shadows. And finally, step 4, what's left behind is a faint but permanent image. So cool.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. This 8-hour-long process, it didn't just create a picture, it created a puzzle. It left behind this incredible fingerprint of time itself, burned right onto the plate.
Okay, so take a close look at the photo. See if you can spot it. There's something wrong, something impossible. The sunlight is hitting the buildings on the left side of the courtyard, and it's also hitting the buildings on the right side at the same time. Wait, what? How is that even possible?
And the answer, of course, is that 8-hour exposure. This photo didn't capture a single instant. It captured the sun's entire journey across the sky. As the sun moved from east to west, it first lit up one side of the yard, and then, hours later, it lit up the other. The plate just sat there and recorded the whole thing.
So what you're seeing isn't a snapshot at all. It's more like a map of time. It's literally what 8 hours of sunlight looks like, all collected and squished down into one single image. An accumulation of time, made visible.
But to get this permanence, there was a trade-off. A huge one. Think about everything that must have happened in that courtyard over 8 hours. People walking by, pigeons flying around, clouds shifting, all of it. Because it was all moving, none of it was still long enough to leave a mark. It's like it never happened. All motion was just erased.
So you'd think after this incredible achievement, the photo would be famous, right? Well, the story gets even weirder. Because for over 100 years, the world's first photograph was completely lost. It just vanished. This timeline is just mind-blowing. So, Niépce creates it around 1827. Then, nothing. For over a century. It's not until 1952 that a historian stumbles upon it, just sitting in an old trunk in England. And even then, it took another 50 years, all the way until 2002, for scientists at the Getty to use modern tech to really see what secrets it was hiding. And that's because even when they found it, the image was basically a ghost. It was so faint. To even see it, you had to shine a light on it at just the right angle. To pull out the hidden details, they had to use all this advanced multispectral imaging. Oh, and the whole scene was backwards, a mirror image, so they had to digitally flip it to see what Niépce actually saw from his window.
So let's bring it all together. What is this strange 8-hour photograph that was lost for a century?
What does it all mean for us today and how we think about photography?
Well, you've probably heard of the idea of the decisive moment in photography. It's that famous concept from Henri Cartier-Bresson about capturing the perfect, fleeting split second. But what Niépce gave us was the total opposite. You could call it the decisive duration. It's not about capturing an instant, it's about the art of patiently collecting time itself.
And that right there is the beautiful paradox of this whole story. The very first decisive moment in the history of photography lasted 8 hours. That just completely changes how you think about the origins of photography, doesn't it? When you really think about it, maybe the best way to see this thing isn't as a picture at all. It's more like a fossil of light. It's the actual physical imprint left behind by the sun, a relic of time itself, just burned onto a piece of metal.
So here's a thought to leave you with. The next time you pull out your phone to snap a picture, remember that every single photo is a negotiation with time. Niépce chose to capture 8 full hours. You're choosing to capture, what, a tiny fraction of a second? The question is, what is your camera really capturing? And in that choice, what is it erasing?